The first one is an entitled people story. I've lived in my house for over 15 years now. It's a nice little two-bedroom place with a big backyard that I worked hard to be able to afford. The neighborhood itself is pretty quiet, just families and older folks mostly. I've never had any issues with neighbors or anything like that. That all changed a few months ago when this new lady moved in across the street. Right from the start, something seemed off about her. The day she moved in, she was yelling at the movers about being careful with her stuff and how she better not find any scratches. Who yells at people like that? Especially the movers who are doing you a service. Anyway, I tried to ignore it and figured she was just having a bad day. But then the weird behavior continued over the next few weeks, like she would water her lawn at odd hours, including the middle of the night sometimes. The light from her sprinklers would shine right into my bedroom window and wake me up. When I kindly asked her if she could avoid watering at night since the light was disruptive, she went off on me about how she can do whatever she wants on her property. Another thing was she would let her dog run loose and do its business on everyone's lawn, but never clean it up. More than once I stepped in a nasty surprise in my own front yard because of that dog. When I told her she needed to leash and clean up after her dog, she gave me this nasty look and said maybe I should build a fence if it bothered me so much. But the worst was when she started parking her big SUV halfway in my driveway, blocking me from getting my own car out. The first time I thought maybe she just parked too close by accident, but then it kept happening again and again. I asked her politely not to block my driveway and she laughed right in my face, said there was plenty of room for me to figure it out and that she could park wherever she wanted. By this point, I was getting pretty fed up with her rude behavior, but I tried to keep my cool. A few of the other neighbors had complained about her too, but none of us wanted to escalate things if we could avoid it. Unfortunately, this lady didn't seem to care at all about getting along with anyone. One day, I came home from work to find her standing in my driveway, looking in the windows of my house. I asked what she was doing, and she said, "Oh, just checking out my new place." I was understandably confused and told her she must be mistaken. This was my house. She got this sneaky look on her face and said, "Not anymore. I bought it this morning. Now hand over your keys. I need to change the locks." I honestly thought she must be joking, or maybe had me confused with someone else. But she kept insisting the house was hers now. She got increasingly angry as I tried to explain there must be some mistake. I told her I definitely did not sell my house, nor did I have any plans to do so. That's when she whips out her phone and calls the police. She tells them I'm trespassing in her house and refusing to leave. At this point, I'm really stunned, but stay calm as I explain to the officer that there's no way she could have bought my house without my knowledge. Thankfully, the cops were reasonable and suggested we both go down to the records office to sort out the ownership papers. Lo and behold, the records show the property is still in my name only. This lady had forged a bunch of fake documents to try and claim she bought my place. The cops detained her on the spot for fraud. Turns out she had done this to several other people in the area too, trying to steal houses from the actual owners. She had been scouting places for weeks, harassing the owners and then forging sales contracts to make it look like she had legally purchased the homes. I can only imagine she planned to rent or sell them herself and pocket the profits. Needless to say, I was relieved to have proof the house still belonged to me. She ended up getting charged with multiple felonies for the fake contracts and harassment of me and other homeowners. Last I heard, she was sitting in jail awaiting trial. This whole bizarre ordeal made me very grateful to have such clear home ownership records on file with the city. If it was just my word against hers, who knows what could have happened. I also invested in some home security cameras in case this lady or anyone else gets the crazy idea to mess with my property again. After living here peacefully for so many years, it blew my mind that someone would just decide they could take what's mine. But at least her scheming was uncovered before she could actually steal my house or anything from other innocent folks around here. Goes to show you really never know what kind of wackos are out there. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for any other suspicious characters wandering the neighborhood from now on. The next one is a pro-revenge story. I'm a Year 9 student, British schooling system, and attend a very good school. This is a massive privilege, and I'm immensely thankful for it. Our school has a magazine that we print and distribute to teachers, students, and parents, and it is very popular. I'm fortunate enough to be the assistant editor of the magazine. I basically format and check the magazine while ensuring everyone in the committee is doing well. And it's hard work. As part of this role, I have to teach and mentor the new students and get them used to the new system. Being in the committee is like having a job, so balancing it with school is tough, and lots of newcomers drop out very quickly when they begin to realize that they can't handle the workload. I enjoy teaching the new guys, as it's mostly people who love writing as much as I do, and it really gives us a connection that sticks around. However, last year I had a very bad mentoree whom I dislike to this very day. Cast me, take a guess, why? Very cool and kind teacher and head editor of the mag AM, arsehole mentoree BF, one of my best friends. Now I knew AM before he joined the committee. We were friends, we'd been into town with each other a bit, and we were good mates, so I was excited to be mentoring him. The way mentoring works is that there are 7 tasks to complete and have checked by your mentor, leading up to a big review 6 weeks after one first joins. The tasks are fairly easy. Learn how to Photoshop pictures for the photographers and learn the formatting of the articles to make my life easier. Now, I teach the mentorees in a way that means I set them a task. For example, task 1. And it has a deadline which I will take in the work, check it, and give feedback on. It works well, and I've always done the mentoring this way. When I set the first task for AM, I was really confident in his ability. Because we were, and still are, at a really good school, I genuinely believed that he would do it, and I'd have no problems. However, as you've probably guessed, I was very wrong. When it was time for his first task to be checked, this happened. Me. Where's the work, AM? AM. I wasn't able to do it, Mercant _ me. Why? It was a fairly simple task. If you had any problems, I told you to ask me about them. AM. Well, the thing is... AM takes a massive breath, and I expect the worst. My dad just got in a really bad car accident, and I've been at the hospital the past few days. I was shocked. This guy's dad was in intensive care, and I was ready to give him a hard time for not doing some work. I immediately apologized and almost had a panic attack. I gave him an extra week to do his work. I was a terrible person. I went home and sobbed about how mean I was ready to be. I came in the next day and avoided him as much as possible. At this point, I didn't even suspect a thing. When it came to his second task, and the first task as well, being checked, I was nervous but prepared. Me. How did you find the work? AM. I couldn't finish either of them. At this point, I was just pissed. He'd told me privately that he wasn't in the hospital as much anymore, so I was confused. Me. Come on. This is starting to get silly. Your review is soon, and you haven't even started the tasks. AM. Mercant _ it's because my cat got put down. It was really old, and I've had it since birth, so I was really attached to it. This really made me upset. I have 2 cats, and I love them to pieces. I couldn't even imagine their death. So I told AM I was sorry, but he needed to either get the work done or take an official break and leave the committee briefly. This gets put on a report which is kept by WI, and it's about the bad things a person in the committee has done. This back and forth of work, nope, and here's why, went on until literally the day before his review. I had sat down with him and spoke to him about how he had not done any of the work and had 6+ hours of work to do for the next day. He was really apologetic, but I had become totally immune to his shenanigans by this point. He'd really ticked me off. By this point, I didn't know if he was lying or not, but I had my suspicions. Then his review came around. I was terrified. You see, as his mentor, if he does badly, I get in trouble for not doing my job well enough. I am a massive goody two-shoes. I've never had a detention, and I was petrified of getting one as my parents would not approve. AM, Wisconsin and I sat down, and when WI asked to see the work, AM said he hadn't got any of it. Before I could interrupt and explain the situation, AM went on to say that he had handed in all of the work, but I had said that none of it was good enough, and threw it all out before the review. WI gave me a death stare. I was crapping bricks. In my first year of being in the committee, I had lied to WI about doing some work. This had been put on my report, and I got screamed at for 15 minutes straight. He said I had delayed printing by over a week, and I was incompetent, etc. We moved past it, and now we enjoy each other's company very much. And essentially, if I made any mistakes, I was getting fired. I looked at AM, shocked about what he'd said, and stuttered to WI the actual situation and all the lies he'd told me. Why didn't believe me, as not so long ago. I had lied. I then made it my absolute mission to prove everything he had told me and WI wrong. But there was one problem. I didn't arrange anything over a traceable source. I hadn't emailed him or texted him, other than on Snapchat, but that deletes messages after being read. It looked like I was going to get fired, and I only had a few days to prove my innocence before I was gone. The plan, finally. That evening I went into town with some friends. AM wasn't present, and I sat down with BF. She was texting AM on iMessage, a key detail. So I told her what happened about the committee in AM. She was shocked and believed me over AM. This is when a plan was hatched. Firstly, I needed evidence, and BF gave me exactly what I needed. She took AM into town on a date as he liked her. She then began a conversation about how she heard I was being nominated for an award for my writing for the school magazine. This was actually true. I won an award for England's Young Journalist of the Year and Best Featured Article about my transgender sister #humblebrag. The next one is a petty revenge story. One day I was walking through City Market with my mom, the quiet buzzing of the lights only slightly annoying. All seemed well, and I decided to get one of the sample cookies from the back. Seems perfectly normal, right? So I grabbed my cookie, which happened to be the last non-burnt one, as another family was coming into the back aisle. I'm not a particularly social person, so I started to walk away. This family consisted of a mother and a son, the son being maybe 5 or 6 years old by my estimates, wearing a vibrant and unattractive shade of yellow. The mom had a typical Karen haircut, and a bland red-colored sweater over a bright white shirt and brand-new-looking skinny jeans. That didn't sound like a good time to me. They realized that there weren't any more non-burnt cookies, which, in my opinion, shouldn't be a problem. Cookies are cookies, especially free ones. The child wailed horrifically and noticed that my cookie that I hadn't yet taken a bite out of wasn't burnt. Wonderful observation skills, little Timmy. The mom approached me and asked in a sickly sweet tone, one you can tell was obviously faked, if I would mind giving my cookie to her kid. I wasn't sure if the tone was from her having a headache from dealing with her kid, or if she wasn't a nice person. But seeing as the kid was young, I chose to be nice and broke my cookie in half, offering one of the halves to the kid because I wasn't about to miss out on eating my cookie, nor was I about to go grab another one, as I felt it would just be rude to the next people. The kid looked confused at this, which immediately felt off. The mom's face contorted from nice to confused to offended very quickly, as if not offering the entire cookie had somehow forsaken her entire family, and she stared at me like I was going to sacrifice a goat in order to curse them. I, naturally, was confused, and realizing what was happening a bit too late, backed away and tried walking away. The lady placed her hand on my shoulder, preventing me from walking away. I was maybe 12 at the time, so was a small boy. She held out her other hand as if expecting me to just hand my cookie away. Let me once again state that I had tried to share, but Karen and her little hellspawn don't seem to understand the concept of sharing, evident by the atrocious wailing the child was releasing from the depths of the underworld itself. I hate the sounds of children crying. I managed to pull away from the iron grasp of this lady and speed walked away. The guttural released from both her and her entitled child gave me the chills, and she marched up to me and tried to take the cookie from me. Before she could, a light bulb flickered on, before bursting in my head from the excitement to see the next levels of rage and profanities my plan was about to induce. I stuffed the entire cookie in my mouth. Now these cookies were fairly big, bigger than the basic sugar cookies they usually give, so my mouth was stuffed. For a moment, Karen and her child were silent, stunned at what they had just witnessed. 10 seconds later, the gates of hell were ripped from their hinges. Karen exploded at me, screeching profanities at me, many of which I surprisingly hadn't heard before. I stood there, the smuggest grin on my little face as I slowly chewed on the cookie, continuing to rub salt in the wound, until the profanities turned into indiscernible noises. Was it wrong of me to do so? Probably. Do I regret doing so? Absolutely not. After maybe 3 minutes of random sounds ejecting from the deep, dark chasm this woman produced, she stopped to take a breath. I had swallowed the cookie by now and was getting tired of listening to the white noise this lady was projecting, so I began to walk away. "I'm not done with you!" she yelled after me. Obviously, I chose to ignore her at this point, as I was just done with her. As soon as I was out of the aisle, I booked it back to my mom and continued on like nothing had happened. The next one is a malicious compliance story. This happened a few years ago when I, 22F, was 18 and still living at home. My mother, then 65, was and still is a raging narcissist and a control freak. In a way, I can't really blame her since she grew up practically looking after her siblings, but it's something that slowly destroyed our family life. I was diagnosed with high-level ADHD when I was 19, which explained a lot of difficulties growing up, but this is the backstory to why my mother is terrified of me touching her stuff. My mother had this hatred for things not being done her way, to the point where she would go through her friends' and family's trash to rip up posts and stuff with names on it because people will find your address if they look through the bins. If they're looking through my bins, they're already outside my house, so I don't think they need my address, to be honest. But she would move everything of mine, put it away in places it doesn't belong, shove it in bags, go into my room to try to tidy it away, and I'd lose things, break things, not have enough clothes out, etc. It was endless, and I was growing angry. My father is an enabler, so he would always defend her even when he knew she was wrong. What tipped the scale was a seemingly normal day. When I cook, I usually clean a little as I go along but do the bulk after I finish eating. Every single time, without fail, as soon as my butt touched the chair to eat, she'd be in the kitchen, screaming about how it's so dirty and no one does anything in this house. Then there'd be smashing pot sounds and noises of anger. We've all gotten used to just tuning her out mostly. When I take a shower, I always dry myself, head up to my room telling them the bathroom's free but not clean, and then get into new clothes. I quickly blow dry my hair and moisturize my face and head down to clean up the bathroom, screaming, shouting, comparing herself to a slave. No one respects her house, etc., etc., every single time. She wouldn't even need the bathroom. She'd just enter it to complain. This time, however, she brandished my shampoo bottle in my face and screamed about how if I didn't put things away fast enough, I was in my room maybe 10 minutes. Then she'd kick me out because she was fed up with tidying everyone else's stuff up. No one asked her to. After she's been on her feet all day at work, she logs books on a computer, plus she refused to retire. Cue malicious compliance. For 4 long weeks, I put everything away, and I mean everything. Everyone else's stuff got put away or put on their placemat. I moved things around to their proper places, put things away when she was mid-using them. Work stuff she left lying around got put back into her pile of papers. Her clothes were dumped outside her room. Blankets folded and stacked when she went to the toilet. Spices and foods back on the top shelves. My mother is around 5'2" and struggles to reach things sometimes, whereas I'm 5'9" and can easily reach things out of her grasp, where they're stored. Bottles, jewelry, glasses, pots, pans, everything was put away. For some reason, I loved it. It seemed to scratch an itch in my brain whenever I got bursts of motivation to do it. It took a month before she basically told me to stop doing it. She'd lost multiple things, kept having to call for help reaching stuff, sort through her papers, and ask me where I moved things. All I said to her was, "Do you see how annoying it is now?" and closed my bedroom door. I moved everything back the next day when she was at work, and for maybe 1 blissful week she stopped nagging. It didn't last long, but I always remember it with a smile. The next one is an entitled people story. My mom and I don't talk anymore. She was always hard to get along with, but the past year or so has been unmanageable. I'm not sure what exactly is going on. I suspect mental illness, but can't confirm it. She refuses any help, and I just had to disconnect. Mom had a friend who always asked me for favors. She'd get Mom to text me while I was at work and not ask me to stop at Starbucks, which was nearly an hour out of my way, and spend my money on buying her coffee. She'd offer me $5 to $7 to clean her car. She'd even ask my parents to move me to the couch and let her sleep in my bed, the mattress I paid for when I lived at home. Time went on, and I changed jobs a lot. At one point, I worked at Dollar General, and this woman found out I worked there and became ridiculous. The first time she came in, she stood at the door and asked me to find stuff for her. I did it exactly once, and she tried to send me back to get a different variety of the item. I just told her what aisle it was on and basically stared at her until she went to look. She came in fairly often, buying random stuff while bombarding me with questions about items we carried. And I had no way of answering. She'd always pay in complicated ways. I never minded someone wanting to split payments between cards, as I know sometimes you're in a weird spot. But she did it as a matter of course. My coworkers finally started letting me go on break when she showed up, and I'd hide or chill until she checked out and left. That's all backstory. Currently, I work in a non-public facing role in a school-like facility. It's a rehabilitation setting for mentally handicapped adults. There's absolutely no reason for this woman to have visited here. Now, we do allow and encourage visitors, but we mean visitors for clients, not staff. This woman apparently wandered around the front desk for a bit before someone asked her what she needed. She asked where I was, and my well-meaning coworker pointed her in my direction. She walked into my room and started talking at me, almost like an endless run-on sentence with no end. Everything she said is kind of a blur, but she just rattled off many little demands. She wanted me to help her move some furniture around and give me $10 to mow her very large yard. She also wanted me to give my mom some money since I'm doing so well. Y'all, I drive a 20-year-old car. She mentioned something about gas money, something about me needing a haircut. Maybe she wanted me to pay her to cut my hair? If I had to sum it up, it was a lot of man chores and IT. She made several other demands, some of which are harder to convey without context, and I eventually physically walked her to the door and lied, saying she couldn't be here. I then talked to my bosses and got them on board. I'm just absolutely reeling. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already.